My name is Lana, and I'm a fan of sensual stories and explicit movies. I've put together a collection of the best stories that I'm sharing with you. Now, we're going to listen to a very special one. Let's go! My name is Jack. Happily married for over 20 years, living in London. A few years ago, I met Jill at a business meeting. At the time, we were competitors in business. However, due to the magnitude of a mutual project, we were forced to cooperate together. Jill is what most men dream of. She weighed about 55 kilos, with C-cup breasts and long, shapely legs that made my D rock hard. She has black hair, blue eyes, a thin waist, and a smile that can break down all resistance. Her butt is small and round. She doesn't realize how many men get turned on when she's around. Jill is sophisticated, highly intelligent, strong-willed, and knows how to get her own way. Jill is my dream woman. She has the ability to possess your soul, your fantasies, and will own your dreams. You'll be hers to command. Unfortunately, Jill doesn't share my bed as we are both married. When I first laid eyes on this beauty, it was most difficult to maintain my concentration. All I could think about was loving her senseless. Our cooperation remained strictly professional over the following 2 years. Yet, I'm sure my lust was evident. Jill remained the subject of many fantasies over the 2 years, and as fate would have it, our paths crossed again, and we would start a business as equal partners. As with any business, the first years proved to be very difficult. However, Jill and I grew closer day by day. On one beautiful day, Jill and I decided to enjoy a glass of red wine together at a local restaurant. Before long, we had finished 2 bottles of wine and were pretty liberal with our verbal expressions and thoughts. Jill said something that hit me between the eyes. She commented on the amount of time we spent together and said that she was my work wife. Jill was wearing blue jeans and a blue blouse that showed enough cleavage to magnetize my eyes. All I wanted was to see those beauties. At that moment, my head spinning from too much red wine was now spinning with the thoughts of this magnificent woman who just told me she was my work wife. All I could think about was loving her. I wanted her, needed her, nothing else mattered. The bulge in my pants giving away my lust. Jill has a way with words. She told me things that made me feel like $1,000,000. I had never felt this good before. At this point, I knew that I was a lost cause. I was smitten with resistance gone. After a quick, lustful kiss in the car en route back to the office, we waited for the coast to clear and the rest of the staff to go home. Jill was in the kitchen, pouring herself some water to try sober up a little, so she could drive home. I came up behind her, with my heart beating like a drum, and somehow hypnotized by the lust in my D, I pressed hard into her butt and kissed her neck. She turned around and instead of slapping me, started to kiss me. Her kisses were beyond my wildest dreams. She explored my mouth with her tongue, tusking, teasing, and suddenly she bit me. Blood was flowing in my mouth, And in a way, I guess, it was like a young girl losing her virginity. I had just become hers. I lifted her onto the countertop, all the while kissing. Next is going to be an overly explicit segment that I'm skipping due to YouTube restrictions. In the video description and in the comment section, you can find links to the full version of my stories in my Telegram channel, Lana Tales. Chapter 2. Several weeks passed, with both of us trying to compartmentalize the events that had happened. The subject was taboo as a topic of discussion. After all, we had a business to run. Again, the opportunity came to have a little drink at the office. This time, we had invited our colleagues, so the chance of us getting into trouble was not great. 4 bottles of red wine soon found their way into our systems, and we were way over the limit to drive. Later that evening, we were again left alone in the office, waiting to sober up sufficiently so that we could drive home. I grabbed Jill by the hand and brought her to my office. Being the MD of the company, I had a slightly bigger desk. Not paying attention to anything, I swept the desk clean and made Jill sit on my desk while I was in my office chair. I pushed her back, so she was lying on my desk. I could smell her sweet scent. I lifted her skirt and pulled her purple lace thong to the side. This was my moment. I was going to take possession of her the way she did to me. While sitting down, Jill's legs on my shoulders, I again started savoring her nectar. She tasted heavenly. I was licking her and kissing her inner thigh, watching her breathing increase and her hips rise to meet my seduction. I knew what is going to happen this night. My lust uncontainable. Suddenly, she sat up saying, "This is cheating. We can't do this." Immediately, she got up, packed her bags without saying a word, and left. My desire and lust crashing down like an abandoned building imploding. The next day at the office was awkward, with neither of us talking about what happened. The incident was again compartmentalized and was not under discussion. 2 long months passed without mention or incident. Chapter 3. As it happened, and as is the case in many companies, the inevitable business trip started to loom its head. We were heading out on a business to negotiate several supply deals. Jill, being a financial person, was critical to the negotiations. A few weeks later, after securing the required visas and air tickets, we made our way through the international departures, leaving my wife and her husband waving us goodbye. The flight was long, and somehow during the flight I reached over and held Jill's hand. We fell asleep holding each other. Soon I felt her squeezing my hand and digging her nails into my skin. Yet she seemed asleep. I watched as Jill was squirming and bringing herself to orga right next to me. I discovered that Jill has the ability to get pleasure without anyone touching her or without the use of her hands. I watched her twitch and breathe faster as her inner thoughts took over. That was when I learned that she could orga without any physical contact at all. And she admitted that sometimes when she was alone at work, she'd let her mind wander and have the most delicious secret orga without touching herself, just squeezing her thighs together. but told me she often did play with herself if no one was around. This woman was amazing me. When she awoke, I whispered in her ear, "Interesting dream?" Her response was short and definitive, "Don't go there." I left it, knowing that this was going to be an interesting trip. Upon arrival at our destination, we were taken to our accommodation as sponsored by our supplier. We arrived at a substandard bed and breakfast. This was no hotel. Our rooms were next to each other's. The rooms were clean, yet provided the minimum of creature comforts. The beds were hard and uncomfortable. Jill's room were particularly bad. I heard a knock on the door, asking if she could use my shower. Her room had no water. Of course, I beckoned her into my room, and like a true gentleman, I let her shower in peace. Everything in me wanted to go into the shower and lay eyes on this heavenly being before me. While she showered, I lay under the covers, stroking my D at the very thought. As I was building up, she came out the shower, towel wrapped around her body, and my heart skipped a beat. I didn't finish, but knew that when I do, it was going to be good. The 3-day build-up in my balls was certainly not going to disappoint. She went back to her room, finished getting ready for the day. Later that night, Jill again needed to come to my room as her water was still a problem. I had 2 single beds and told her to make herself comfortable. At least we could watch TV together. She agreed and came to sit on the bed, wearing shorts and t-shirt. We shared a bottle of red wine again, and soon things started heating up. I pulled her toward me. She lay on my shoulder while we snuggled up together. Without care of concern of real life, we enjoyed each other. Jill always wears the most incredible perfume. The evening was spent tickling her back and stroking her hair. I'm not sure if Jill could hear my heartbeat or if she could see the stiffness of my D. I knew that I was a lost cause with this woman in my arms. For the most part, the first night, we behaved ourselves. Jill and I were getting used to the fact that we needed to share facilities, and indeed share my room. She not only had water problems, but also had issues with her electricity. She needed to use the hairdryer. Every opportunity we had during the following day, we were holding each other, sending each other looks of appreciation and whispering affection to each other. The chemistry was building of that, there was no doubt. After a long day visiting factories, we returned to our accommodation. After we had settled down in my room, we started fondling each other. We were lying in bed next to each other, kissing. The foreplay was incredible. Suddenly, Jill got up and left the room, just like she had done before, this time saying that we were going too far. As she left, I told her that the door will be left open and that I will be waiting for her to return. Jill sat in her room and had many conversations with herself. 2 hours later, the door opened and she snuck into bed next to me. She lay with her back turned to me, and I whispered in her ear, "Everything is going to be okay." Those words are the key to her inner soul. I kissed her neck while lifting her into a sitting position. I removed her t-shirt, her wonderful breasts on display. I lay her on her back and removed her shorts. There, before me, was the object of my desire, the woman who had controlled me since the day my blood mixed with the nectar from her innermost parts. I lay on top of her, still not penetrating her, still kissing and fondling. Next is going to be an overly explicit segment that I'm skipping due to YouTube restrictions. In the video description and in the comment section, you can find links to the full version of my stories in my Telegram channel, Lana Tale.